Stop messing around, stop fooling around, stop delaying, stop procrastinating. Get up, get out, get it done. Everything is possible, nothing is a problem, and anything can be overcome. I just get my ass up out of bed, I get my shit together, and I get out and I start the fight. And that will transform you from a mere mortal into a superhuman being. I've never, ever, ever met anybody who told me that they got rich watching their IRA or their 401k.
So I wanted to start off with talking about Jerome Powell. He came out recently with his statement about the inflection point of our economy. He expects growth to pick up speed and for things to get better quickly. Do you agree? And do you have any preparations that you are making in a business sense or an investment sense?
I agree. We're in an inflection point for sure. There's lots of things that you can point to that would be reasons to think that there's an inflection point in our world and our economy happening right now. So, for one, there's $6 trillion in the bathtub floating around in the water that wasn't there before. It didn't exist. So all that money's going somewhere. There's been a pandemic for a year and a half. That's obviously the major primary catalyst for it. But consumer, societal, human behaviors, they're all changing right now. They're changing because the pandemic forced us to change. Without something like the pandemic coming in and forcing the behavior to change, we'd just be clipping away at our normal pace and doing our normal thing like we've always done with certain degrees of predictability and not really moving the needle much in any direction with anything. And, something like this pandemic comes along, as horrible as it is and has been for so many people, but it moves the needle. It creates new worlds, new economies, new rules, new businesses, new lives. People have picked up and relocated to areas where they never would have thought they'd live because of this major cultural shift that's been occurring. We're absolutely at an inflection point. So what does that mean for me? I have continued to make sure that I have my cash out of the banks and into investments if I can find them. It's been a difficult year because there's been so much demand for hard assets in every type of asset category: real estate, art, homes, everything, right? Everybody's...
Yeah, we just talked last week about how yield is hard to come by.
Yield's impossible to find. So I deploy whatever cash I can into assets because I don't want to hold dollars because they're printing more of it every minute of every day. And as long as there's more supply of dollars, I don't want to be holding it. I want to hold things where there's limited supply. So real estate is always the main thing that I deploy my money into. This year has taught me something, and I've spoken to you a little bit about this, but I've learned to be more open to investing in other types of assets that I feel are going to be major cultural impacts for us and are really going to move the needle for the decades coming up. So I think cryptocurrencies is a massive opportunity and a massive new sector that's really going to change the way the whole world lives. Certain stocks in certain specific industries, I think, are poised to really make a big impact in our society. I'm trying to seek those out. I've sought a few of those out. And then some select private equity investments that are poised to be leaders in their particular industry. One industry I love is the cannabis industry. It's hard to find good investments there, and it's not open to the whole world yet. It's still a very insular, closed, private community. But I think it's a very strong industry. We're in the second at bat and the first inning of the cannabis industry's growth curve. Yeah. And I think it's going to be around for a long, long time. I think it's going to continue to proliferate and get legalized state to state. And there's no running away from it. These states don't have any money. They have to get revenue from somewhere. Online electronic sports betting, cannabis, stuff like this that's new where they can look to regulate it and get some revenue from it. Definitely it's going to happen.
What changed for you that made you more open to those investments? Was it technology or just...
Real estate investing became so high demand and so popular, and everybody's doing it, that it made me look to other areas to deploy some capital. Now, look, when I say that I'm making other investments in other areas, I'm still 92% real estate. So by far the significant majority of what I focus on is still real estate. They're not making any more real estate. So if you believe what I'm saying about supply and demand quotients driving everything, and our population's just getting bigger and the demand for real estate's only going to keep going, then it's a logical allocation for me to be like, 90, 92% real estate and then 8 or 10% something else. But I think the something else category is an exciting place to be. For me, it didn't really exist for me in the years past because it was really just a very predictable stream of water that was flowing down the river, and I was happy being in the real estate space. It's what I knew. It's where I could add value. It's what I'm good at. But there's so much that's changing in our world right now. I don't know about you, George. The last time I used cash, actual paper money, maybe I've used cash 5 times in the past year.
Yeah.
And 3 of the 5 times have been next door at Frank's Deli, leaving a tip for the staff. Yeah. I really haven't used cash that much at all, and I think many people it's been the same way for. I use my Apple Pay, I'm using my credit cards, my online bill pay, Venmo, PayPal, whatever. That stuff is replacing my need for cash. So I don't have a need or demand to hold cash in my wallet. I don't have a need or demand to hold cash in my bank account because it's doing nothing there except devaluing. I just don't have a need for cash. I think it's that way for many, many people, and it's only going to continue to get more so. So look to the online and digital payment systems. This is where cryptocurrencies come in, and it's really going to be a whole new industry. The banks are going to have a tough time fighting for their relevance over the next decade or two as DeFi grows, as cryptocurrencies grow, as there become more options to consumers for getting loan products, for putting money into accounts, for being able to access investments. You used to need the banks for all that stuff. Not so much anymore. So keep an eye on the banks. They're going to have to really fight to stay alive, and they can't just go ahead and scoop up the competition like in any other industry. You can just go buy the competing threat and then bury them or merge them or whatever. You can't really do that with cryptocurrencies and online digital payment systems. They're already out there doing their thing. So these banks are, I think, not long for the world. The question for me is how long will it take for them to meet their demise? I think it's going to take a decade or two, which is not that long of an amount of time given that they've been around since the beginning of time.
Right, in the grand spectrum of things, that's a very short period of time.
Yeah. So, the banks are part of the fabric of our legislative and economic history since our country was founded. And it's always the banks that were able to make rules and regulations that governed us and offered us products, and we always geared our life around what banking needs we had. So if we had a 30-year mortgage or we had a car loan, or right? I mean, that's how we sort of create our monthly budgets and our annual budgets and figure out how much money we need to make is based on banking relationships and banking products and obligations. So if that stuff goes away and gets replaced by more consumer user-friendly alternatives, I think it's going to be a problem for the banks.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But I see this as an inflection point for sure. Jerome Powell, hey man, Jerome, what are you doing with your money?
That'd be a good question to ask.
What are you doing with your money? You're calling all this. Hey, look, he's not saying anything earth-shattering.
Right.
With $6 trillion out there that wasn't there before, it's an inflection point. The last time we saw something massive happen in our society that was economic and social and cultural and all of it wrapped into one was back in the 2008 crisis. A lot of people were out of work. There was no liquidity in the banks. People had to change their behaviors. Our lives are really a predictable set of swings of a pendulum, I think. Day in and day out, we know the sun rises, we know the sun sets, we know we got to get up, go to work, we know we got birthdays, anniversaries, family events, we know we have some vacations maybe that are planned, we know we have to get the kids to school, right? That's all in the pendulum of how time swings in our life. And without a major event like a pandemic to come along and disrupt that pendulum's just going to swing. It's just going to keep doing its thing. And sure, Coke can spend $100 million this quarter versus Pepsi's $90 million this quarter on advertising, and Coke, as a result, might pick up a few more basis points of consumer demand for its cola product versus Pepsi. But that pendulum will swing back, and then Pepsi will outspend them the next quarter, Coke will outspend them the next quarter, and it goes like that forever. If you look at the Coke and Pepsi competitive models for market share, they're always driven by marketing, because there's half the world that likes Coke, there's half the world that likes Pepsi, And on any given day, if there's more marketing from Coke that hits the media waves, maybe they'll pick up a few more bips of sales. But it's a marketing fight, and it just swings back and forth like a pendulum. It's very predictable. The pandemic comes along and completely disrupts the swing of the pendulum. Now you've got 7 billion people on Earth that have all sorts of new needs, demands, and requirements and behaviors that never existed before. How do you address all of those? New businesses, new ideas, new technologies. Things get accelerated. I mean, look at the behavior of home buyers we spoke about recently that accelerated decades in 1 year. People that never thought they'd move out of their house moved out and they relocated. People that never thought they'd leave a city and move out to the country left the cities, and they're going to go there to stay.
I mean, one of those accelerations, I think Bank of America came out recently, I don't know if you saw this, that I think the stock market or money into stocks has been up, I think, more in the last 5 months than in the last 12 years.
So I saw that too. So the number is this. There's $570 billion that flowed into equity funds. So keep your eye on the ball there, equity funds, because it's different than other phrases. I'll get to that in a second. So 70 billion into equity funds that wasn't there before over a 5-month period. Where did that 560 or 70 billion come from? Well, there's 6 trillion that's now floating around out there. So 560 billion on 6 trillion, you're talking not even 10% of the new money supply that's out in the world, and about 10% of it flows into equity funds. Makes sense to me. Let's talk about other places it might have gone. So I heard that there's an equivalent 550, 560 billion of consumer money that flowed into stocks, trading accounts, E-Trade, Acorn Stash, Robinhood. The regular common investor of the world was responsible for the stock run-up of 2020 because they had stimulus money, and they put $1,000 into stocks, or they put $2,000 into stocks. Well, you might think that's not really large enough of an investment to move the market. Why would someone write about it? But if you've got 300 million people in the United States, and each of them have $500 or $1,000 that go into the stock market, start doing the math, it's a lot of money. So you've got equity funds that got beefed up. You've got consumer accounts that got beefed up. We all know what happened to real estate. All of a sudden, everybody was a buyer of real estate. They went out and bought real estate where they didn't have the money to do it before. They have the money. They did it now. There's probably another billion or $1.5 billion that went into the real estate markets. And I'm talking about single-family homes. I'm talking about housing. I'm not talking about investment real estate. I'm talking about where am I going to live with my family. So in those 3 asset classes right there, you're looking at maybe a couple trillion of the 6 trillion that was printed and put out into the bathtub. That's where the money's coming from. And it's amazing to see. So sure, it flowed into the equity funds at a more rapid velocity and in larger amounts than it ever has in the past 12 years. But let's look at the past 12 years. You want to know what happened 13 years ago? Because 13 years ago was 2008. So you have the 2008 crisis, markets take a shit, government puts out lots of stimulus, which they did back then. The clocks reset. There's all this new money now. The clocks reset, and fast forward to 2020, 2021. So it's been 10, 11, 12 years. For there to be an analysis of how 560 billion flowed into equity funds in the past 5 months, more than it had in the past 12 years, that makes total sense to me, because that pendulum was swinging the past 12 years. Everything was normal. Everything was regular. Everything was peaceful and hunky-dory, right? The sun rises in the morning, sets at night. Life's good. We can predict those things. Something unpredictable comes along. What do? We change our behaviors. Well, if we change our behaviors in conjunction with $6 trillion being accessible to the entire country, you're going to see some pretty massive shifts. We're at the dawn of a new era. What are you going to do about it? I always ask, what are we going to do? What are you going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? You can't sit and be part of the swinging pendulum like you were for the past 12 years. Because if you are, the whole world's going to pass you by, and you're going to be sitting there on that same pendulum from 2015, 2016, 2017, and you're going to go, oh, why isn't the world working for me? Oh, why aren't I becoming successful? Oh, why aren't I able to achieve what all these other people are able to achieve? One of the answers to that question is going to be, you're still sitting on the same friggin' pendulum. Get off and pivot and figure out what to do with the rest of your life now It's happening now. Inflection point, yeah. 560 billion into new asset classes all day long? Absolutely. 6 trillion in the bathtub. Are you going to get out and grab yours? You know, George, I remember when I was a kid, there was a game show. And in this game show, they cut bags and bags of money, burlap sacks filled with $100 bills and $20 bills, and they littered them all over this floor. And the floor was a big, wide floor, slippery floor, and the person who won the game show got to jump in this room, spread their legs wide open or open up their arms and like slide across the floor and grab as much of the money as they could. I mean, this is a pretty grotesque example, but I'll never forget seeing it on TV. Yeah. So the point is that it's like that now. There's $6 trillion on the floor in front of you. Are you going to not go for it? Are you going to spread your legs open wide or your arms open wide and scooch across the floor and try and scoop up a lot of this money as much as you can and take it with you? That's where we are. It's the image in my mind. I can't get it out of my head, but that's the equivalent of where we are today in our world. Whatever you were doing from 2012 to 2020, don't do it the same way. You got to do it differently. Because if you do it the same way, you're just going to get left behind, I'm afraid, and I don't want to see that. So figure out where you can be moving forward and go get yours.
I mean, the people that are clearly getting theirs are in the Forbes magazine. They released their Billionaire List.
Oh, the annual list.
Yeah.
Why are you reading that stuff?
Well, you know, I like to keep up to date on all the money gossip.
Yeah.
And
I would not want to be on that list because today it's almost like, you know, there's people that don't even want billionaires to exist, which I get. A billion's a lot of money. How much money do you need?
Yeah, Bernie Sanders, I think, is for the most kind of high-profile person talking about that kind of thing.
Yeah, look, but you know, the great thing about where we live in our country and what we're able to do is that we're able to take advantage of opportunity and make something for ourselves and our families. You know, if you're really good at it, you can achieve billionaire status. I mean, Elon Musk is not a devil or a bad guy. I mean, he's solving a lot of problems in our world and in society. That's how I see it. I mean, I don't know him.
Yeah, is there any value in your mind to pay attention to that at all? To pay attention to these lists and is it an aspiration?
I'll tell you what. If you're a hater, then you pay attention to the lists and there are names that you throw darts at and you curse and you chastise and you yell and scream and you say these people are awful people and they shouldn't exist. You know, I can see the haters out there using that list for that. If you're entrepreneurial and success and mindset oriented, maybe you look at that list and say, wow, that's cool. Look, here's what I do with a list. First of all, I don't read it. Second of all, if you were to tell me who's on it, I could probably guess the first bunch of people anyway, just because you hear about it all the time. But, you know, I think it's amazing to build something from nothing. Whether it's $1 billion or $1 million or $1,000, whatever it is, it's amazing to build and grow and create something that's meaningful. And it's just an amazing thing. And that can happen here. As fucked up as our country is and as divided as our country is and as all the problems that our country has, it's great because there's so much opportunity and we can overcome all these problems by exploring the opportunities. And so I think that's an amazing thing. I get inspired by it. I want to know how they did it. Like, I want to sit in a room with these guys and say, how did you do it? What can you teach me? I'm in real estate. I'm an investor. What can I learn from you? Share something with me. Like I would want to know. Like it's an amazing, fascinating thing to me. So that's why I would care about that list, if at all. But really, I find generally in life it's a waste of time to worry about or care about what other people have or what other people think. I think you got to have your own goals, set your own path. Stay on your path. I wouldn't obsess about what other people have. I mean, I know some of these billionaires, and the ones that I know are down-to-earth, nice, humble, sweet people. They should be applauded, and they employ a lot of people, and they pay a lot of taxes and all that stuff. And I don't really understand the whole war on the rich that's happening, but I do get that there's a lot of people that suffer financially and mentally and socially, and the people that are successful are perhaps easy targets. I don't know, man. We're getting into the territory that I promised you I wouldn't get into on this show.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't pay that list much mind. I would love to meet those guys and take notes and compare and see what they all have in common. I sort of know a bunch of things already that they all have in common. That's it. I think you got to have your own goals and just rock your own path, not worry about what anybody else has. That's how I see that list.
Speaking of staying on our path, I wanted to bring up, we been doing this for about a little over a year now, doing the posts on social media and doing the podcast. And on our Instagram,
been the best year of my life,
really,
with you, George.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Except for when you wear hot pink shirts.
It's also been the best year of my life, so I appreciate all these talks we've been having. So on our Instagram, we have 3 of our top posts, and I wanted to run them by you and see if it, spurs any thoughts, see if you still agree with them, see if you have any
I feel this is like an ambush. Like last week, you asked me if I remembered what my favorite books were, and I got 2 out of the 3.
Yeah, well, no, I think you'll remember these. These are pretty things you've said before. So the first one is, for me, success is about health, happiness, spirit, family, and friends. The rest is all bullshit. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That's completely true.
Yeah, that one is by far the one that took off the most for us in organic reach.
Really?
Yeah, people really love that sentiment.
That's good, because that's how I really feel. Those are the top things for me. Without those things, I don't know why I do what I do. Those are the most important things to me. They're still the most important things to me. Tomorrow, they will still be the most important things to me. And I'm lucky that those are the things that are important to me. I'm lucky that I have my health, and that I'm able to do this podcast with you, and I'm able to get out there and get beaten up like I do every day. I mean, if you're lucky, that's what you get to do. They say about couples that have been married. My parents were married 63 years.
Wow.
And, they say that marriage, if you're lucky, you get to grow old with someone and be married for 63 years. That's an amazing thing, right? We think that you just got recently married, George.
Yeah.
I've been married for maybe 20 years almost. 63 years, it just sounds like a lifetime, right? But you get there one day if you're lucky. In business, you get there one day if you're lucky, right? And there's recipes for how to get there. So I feel lucky that I'm able-bodied, I'm healthy, and I'm able to wake up and take a swing at the ball every day.
Well, I think it's a unique way to view success. Unfortunately, it's unique in that I think a lot of people view success as a means to get a lot of possessions and get a lot of, currency. And, for you and for, I think, a lot of people that are happy with the success that they found, it's a means for a more free life, a more rich life with the people that they care about.
You need money. You need money in life no matter where you are on the economic ladder. You need money. Having more of it than you thought enables you to have more time to do things that you want to do.
It's a force multiplier.
No secret. But if one day I become not healthy and not able-bodied, it would be a bummer, and I would still do what I do. Right now, I'm lucky, so I want to take advantage of it. I've got energy, and I've got ambition, I've got goals, and I want to get out there and kick ass every day. And, God willing, I'll be able to. And, that stuff's important to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. The second post that did really well for us was, certainty is an illusion. The real trick is to find comfort in uncertainty.
Nothing is certain. We can all do math and have models and have projections and have pro formas and have statistical analysis that tell us percentages and likelihoods of outcomes. Nothing is certain. If you can get certainty, you should be not afraid to pay up for it and give something for certainty, because certainty is valuable, or higher degrees of certainty are more valuable than lower degrees of certainty, for sure. You have to learn how to operate and live within that area of which is uncertain, because everything in life, every day, there's lots of uncertainty. So what are you going to do? Like, are you going to crawl into a hole and not operate, not breathe, not open up your eyes? Or are you going to swim those waters and take risks, even though things aren't certain? We want things to be certain. We want to know that our people are going to be there, there's going to be money in the bank to pay bills, and there's going to be people around it. Like, we don't know. Nothing is certain. And we all chase this phantom called certainty. It's a chase that we all do. I do it too. For me, I'm very comfortable in the uncertain, and I'm also willing to give and exchange something for a little bit more levels of certainty. I always find that that's a good trade and a good transaction for me. Either I can pay more for a little bit of likelihood of certainty, I can work a little more to put a little bit more miles on the tires and maybe feel better about the job I've done. Like, whatever it is, trading something for certainty is for me, it's always been the right thing to do.
And then the last post that has really resonated with people is a simple one. Think it, say it consistently, you will become it.
Manifestation. It's so easy. George, I remember when we first started working together, I told you the story about me up on the ski hill with the Olympic ski racer, and she visualized the run. One of the most impactful moments of my life. So I've been trying to visualize my run ever since then. Every day I try and visualize my run. Every year I'm visualizing the year. And if I want to achieve something, I visualize it. I imagine it. I imagine what it looks like. I imagine successful people who have done it before me and how they've done it and what they've looked like doing it. And you just start thinking about it. It's got to start in the mind. If it doesn't start in the mind, you can't make it real. It starts in the mind, and then you manifest it into reality. This is not a new concept. People have been talking about this for a long time. This shit works. For me, it works. So for anybody who's having a tough time imagining how to look, how to act, how to become successful, how to take that next step in whatever it is you want to do, how to get from point A to point B, how to get that new job and nail the interview, how to do the audition and nail the audition, whatever it is, you imagine it. We talked about how actors are trained to practice their craft in front of a mirror so they can stare at themselves. They get instant feedback. They can make adjustments, even minute ones, on the fly. And then at the end of many hours of doing that, they've evolved into a place where they're now behaving in such a way and their muscles are performing in such a way where they're doing it perfectly. That's not unlike what you have to do in life. So you think it, you imagine it, you become it, you do it regularly and often, you're going to find that you just get there quicker and easier if you manifest and if you don't manifest these things. So I'm a big believer in that stuff. What do you think about that?
I'm a huge proponent of affirmations, and that's, as you know, I have a whole morning routine that I do, and one of them is I have Zig Ziglar's morning affirmations that I do every day.
Did we ever talk about the experiment where the gardener took two species of the same plant, gave them the same amount of water, the same amount of sunlight, and the plant on the right, he like yelled at it and cursed at it and called it a dumb motherfucker and all this stuff, and the plant on the left, he like gently caressed the leaves and was singing to it and said very nice, sweet things to it. And sure enough, the one plant flourished and the other one died.
Yeah,
you never saw that?
No, I don't think so.
It's a wild experiment. You got to go look it up on YouTube. You'll be like, wait, what? The plants really? But yeah, they're living cells. I mean, at some level, living cells can perceive aggression and love. And I think that's the point of this experiment. And it's an amazing thing to see. So look, it works the same way with us. If we're nice to ourselves, if we give ourselves affirmation, if we tell our mind what we want and our mind can then tell our body how to get it, it's only good. And I think you're only going to increase your chances.
Yeah, I recently gave this advice to my brother who was, he had a job interview and he wasn't sure what they were going to ask. And I said, for me, whenever I've gone into a job interview that's gone well, I've focused on affirming the positive qualities that are in myself, because then you can always bring the conversation back to things that are actually true. They aren't necessarily, they're evergreen things.
Hey, and if you do it enough, your behavior becomes habit, and the habit becomes permanent. So, again, I don't know what the amount of time is now in the modern world. If it's 21 days, if it's 68 days, if it's 132 times that you have to repeat whatever the behavior is in order for it to become a habit. But create the habit, because think about it. You're born, you die, and in between those 2 points is a lot of hours, a lot of minutes, a lot of days. And so if you have to repeat a behavior 21 or 100 times, you're talking about a small blip in the timeline of your life. I mean, it's a tiny little nothing. It's a breath, it's an exhale of time across your lifespan, hopefully 80 plus years. So it's such a meaningful investment. I think it's so obvious to make that investment. You create those habits and force your behavior to change. Anybody can change. Anybody can become anything. You have to have the mindset for it. And you have to have the persistence and consistency for it. You have to have some other things too, but you start off with the commitment, persistency, and mindset. You're halfway there, I have to think.
You mentioned pro forma like 2 questions ago, or responding to that last post.
Yep.
And it made me think, business people love terminology, love kind of, shortening words. And
Doesn't everybody?
I think so, yeah. It just makes things more efficient. I was curious, are there any particular terms that we haven't touched on yet, or that you feel like are so important we should double back on?
Pro forma.
Especially in real
as
estate.
the example.
Yeah.
Well, pro forma, I think, in Latin means something like of a form or of a particular form. And pro forma in business, we make pro forma financial statements, which are projections. We have assumptions, we model those assumptions into numbers, and we create a pro forma. So that's always one that gets used. In my business, look, I'm going to give you the single number one business term you need to know and you need to be comfortable with: revenue. Sales, revenue, gross revenue, whatever version of it, it's all the same thing. Nothing happens in business unless the cash register rings. You have to have sales. You have to generate sales. Without revenue and sales, you have no business. So I would say for anybody looking to know about business or the terminology of business, start with that, because you don't have shit unless you have revenue coming in. And then everything else after that you can figure out. After revenue, at the bottom line, you have EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's a key metric in business. It's the measurement of the health of a company or a business. And it's often the metric on which those companies or businesses trade or sell. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to build your business, you want to build up your EBITDA, because that's the multiple of which someone will pay you for your business. Look, if you're an entrepreneur and you get into business and start a business for yourself, you better be doing that for 2 reasons. Number one, so that it can run without you needing to be there all the time, because otherwise it's just a job. And number 2, so that one day you can sell it and someone will pay you a multiple of your EBITDA for it. I mean, without those 2 goals, why are you getting into business? Because otherwise you're just taking on all that risk, putting up all your own money, working 20 hours a day for a job. You can just go work for someone else for a job and have your 9 to 5 and probably make the same amount of money. So EBITDA is a big one to know, because that's the one that you want to maximize if you're getting into business, if you're running and managing a business. In my business of real estate, my EBITDA is NOI, net operating income. And net operating income is the gross revenue less a vacancy rate, less the recurring operating expenses, equals net operating income. And that's the value at which commercial buildings, income producing buildings, will trade on and be valued at for loans and be sized up to see how much debt it can take on at a certain interest rate and at a certain loan size. So net operating income, if you're in real estate, is what you want to be focusing on. EBITDA, if you have other types of businesses, is what you want to be focusing on. And I don't care what business you're in, revenue is what you want to be focusing on, because you don't have anything unless you have revenue.
When someone wants to invest in real estate, they haven't before.
All the time they do.
Yeah. What does that conversation usually look like for you if they come to you and they say, hey, Peter, I want to invest in real estate? Are there things that you have to sell them on particularly? Are there things that you need to...
Well, that's a good question. First of all, I don't really have to do much selling. My role and what I do is I make investing in real estate accessible to accredited investors. Historically, being able to invest in real estate has not been accessible. There was no E-Trade account for real estate. There was no Acorn or Robinhood for real estate. So how do you invest in real estate up until 2020 or 2021? You either have to know someone or you have to be in the business, but there's no real way for an investor to have access to it. So I don't really sell people on it. I'm buying real estate and investing in real estate all the time. If people want to partner with me, I welcome it. And I think everyone should have a way to be able to invest in real estate, whether it's with me or anybody else or anything else like Happy Nest.
Yeah.
App or something like that. I'll talk about what their investing goals are, what their investment past has been. Maybe they have real estate, maybe they don't. Maybe they want exposure to it. Maybe they need to have exposure to it. But there's not much of a sales pitch that I do. I mean, we're out here every day talking about business and real estate and investing, George, so maybe indirectly what we do is a bit of a sales pitch for the industry and for the concept of investing in real estate, but I'm not really...
It's more of an organic process of...
Look, if you want to invest in real estate, you need to have a great operator that knows what they're doing, a great partner. You need to have a great asset and a great location and a great business plan. That's what you need. If you can find those things on your own, great. If you can be those things on your own, great. If you need to have someone procure the opportunity, secure the contract on the property, weave it into their management company and operate it and run it and collect rents and pay bills and make repairs and handle legal issues and all of that stuff, then you need a partner. You need an operating partner. The industry is opening up lately. There's more sponsors that are doing real estate syndications for accredited investors to be able to invest into than ever before. I've been doing it for about 30 years. Just now we're starting to see the windows open and more people are coming into the space. So just be able to know who's the right operator for you and what the right markets are for you and what the right deal is for you. My conversations with people are usually pretty simple. It's just like, hey, what are you looking for? And is real estate right for you, or apartment buildings right for you, or is this market right for you? And if the answer is yes to that, then maybe the conversation continues.
All right, so I got two Zest quests for you, Peter.
Two Zest quests.
Two Zest quests. First one is, you've heard of a North Star, something that guides you in that direction.
Yeah.
Do you have a South Star? Do you have anything that you look at and you're like, I want nothing to do with that direction. I need to head in the opposite direction of that. Is there anything in this life that you feel like?
I would say that my South Star includes things that aren't fun or enjoyable. I really avoid those things or situations. I have a really good radar screen for that. So people that are in my orbit and come into my life, if they're difficult or problematic or just too much, it's not going to happen with me. It needs to be easy. It needs to be mellow. It needs to make sense. It needs to be a pleasure. It needs, that's just how I run on a day-to-day basis. I gravitate towards smiles and fun, and so that would be my North Star. My South Star is avoiding those things which are just a pain in the ass.
And the last question, we actually mentioned that, the brevity of life today, and you've mentioned before about how important it is to live the eulogy you want for yourself.
I believe that.
What do you want done with your body after you die, and what kind of funeral, memorial service? Have you thought about that kind of thing?
I've thought a lot about this.
Yeah. So
why are you asking me this question?
It's just one of those things that I feel like it reveals a lot about the person.
So I've thought about it a lot.
Yeah.
Most of the people in my life that have passed away have gone on to be in traditional cemeteries and in the ground. And man, I find that to be not terribly inviting. After you're gone, you want people to remember you and have a smile on their face and remember you in a positive way. And if there's a place that you're going to rest, you want it to be a place that people want to come to. And I find cemeteries to be a place where I don't want to go to.
I literally had this conversation with my wife just 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, some amazing picturesque place like on a hilltop or under a tree with sunshine and not a whole lot of headstones around. That sounds better to me. So one of the things that I half joke about, but I'm half serious about, is that I thought maybe I'd want to have a part of me cremated and made into one of these compressed things that can be like an ocean reef, or there's these companies that'll make you into a diamond ring so that your spouse can wear you on her finger. That's fucking weird. But I thought of maybe becoming an ocean reef in some sort of special place. I thought of maybe part of me hanging out up on a mountaintop somewhere. Yeah. Places that are special to me, that people I know and love shared moments with me. Maybe I'd want to be present in those places after I'm gone. But the traditional cemetery is a rough one. Part of me will be in a traditional cemetery at some point, only because my mom took care to buy cemetery plots for my whole family.
Right, yeah. Yeah,
so we could all be together when we're dead. But we're only going to be together as dead people, because I don't know who's alive who's going to want to come and hang out.
Right. What about anything for memorials or funerals? Do you have anything in mind, or do you leave that to the family, let them do what they want to do? Or?
My mom said, Peter, when I go, you got to get this amazing gospel choir and get one of these New Orleans marching bands and throw a big party. I want music and food and party.
Sounds good. Can I come to that?
Right. Well, she's, I think she's onto something with that. I don't know. I mean, I do know. I know how serious she is about that, but I'll have to talk to her more about that when I see her next. But I think it's to me, that resonates, and it's maybe it's only because she's my mom. That's why it resonates with me. But I would want something like that. I'd want it to be a party. I wouldn't want people to cry. I'd want people to laugh and tell stories and talk about the things that they learned from me, or that I shared with them, or that we shared together, or that we did together, whatever it was. I mean, to me, that's what remembering someone is having so many of these great moments that you're inundated with happiness and great memories. And I think it's always tough for people when they have a loss and they don't have a good memory or a happy memory. And I know that there's those examples out there. And my heart always goes out to people that are having a tough time to find something to be happy about in a time of loss, because times of loss are tough. If you do it right, if you live right, and if you have the right relationships, they can also be a time of happiness. I hope that when I go, it's a time of happiness for people.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And hopefully not for many more years.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Peter. I appreciate it. And I'll see you next week.
I'm going to go jump in an ocean and become a reef.